In just 5 days, TikTok faces a complete ban in the U.S. I do not know where people will learn to put makeup on, dance, or cook food. But today, Bloomberg is reporting that China is now weighing a new plan to save the platform by potentially selling its U.S. operations to one particular buyer, Elon Musk. Multiple sources tell Bloomberg that Chinese officials strongly prefer that TikTok remains owned by ByteDance, a Chinese company. But a possible high-profile deal with, of course, one of Trump's closest allies does hold some appeal to the Chinese government. Now, a representative for ByteDance has called the report pure fiction, and Elon Musk and his team have said absolutely nothing. So let's discuss. Back with us, Ron Insana, CNBC senior analyst and CEO of iFi.ai, and Max Chafkin joins us, Bloomberg Businessweek journalist and co-host of the podcast Elon Inc. Okay, Max, it is Bloomberg reporting. Explain this. Despite a denial from ByteDance, nothing from Musk, could he actually buy TikTok?
Well, we should say this is Chinese officials. This is not ByteDance necessarily doing the talking. You could kind of understand why they might be talking about this. This ban is coming down the pipe unless the Supreme Court intervenes, which it doesn't appear they will. And TikTok is a strategic asset to the Chinese government. Mm-hmm. So if they're trying to preserve this, a little bit of potential influence anyway that they have in the United States, who better than Elon Musk? And when you start thinking about who the other potential acquirers here who would be acceptable to the Chinese government and acceptable to the Trump administration, it's sort of hard to think of a lot of other candidates. Elon Musk, for better or worse, and he gets criticized a lot by both Democrats and Republicans, has a very, very good relationship with the Chinese government. And so you can see why they would like this. You can also see why Trump might go along with it.
I don't know. I got three letters that keep coming to mind. The FCC, antitrust regulations that we once had, right? Antitrust regulations that are focused on making sure no one individual, no one company has a monopoly on a specific industry, right? If this were to happen, would this not be like case number one of the mergers and acquisitions bonanza we're about to head into for the next 4 years?
100%. Listen, to think that there's going to be any deal. Now, the Supreme Court obviously can still block this deal from happening. I don't know that there's any injunction you can get against the Supreme Court that would reverse their decision. Having said that, though, Steph, you hit at the point, which is it's going to be an M&A bonanza. There's nothing to block any deals that are in the pipeline once we change administrations. As much as President Biden tried to block the Nippon U.S. Steel deal, and President Trump may do that for the same reason, when it comes to mergers and acquisitions going forward, we're already seeing deals in the pipeline. We're already seeing companies anticipate very little regulatory scrutiny, whether it's monopolistic behavior, whether it's consumer protection, you name it.
And we should remind our audience, right, that the reason antitrust regulations are in place are not to be anti-business. It's to protect consumers. Correct. It's to make sure things are still competitive.
But it's also not 1974 anymore. And they've been gone for a long time. I mean, there have been attempts to enforce what used to be called the Sherman Antitrust Act, which goes back to the early 20th century. And over the course of the last several decades, each and every one of these laws, rules, regulations has been watered down, and we're seeing more and more concentration in business.
Okay, but I just want to talk about what we're seeing this week, because if people out there are not already worried or on high alert that the kind of capitalism this country has been practicing for decades is slipping into kleptocracy, just look at what we're looking at this week, right? That Elon Musk, who already controls, well, Tesla's over here, already controls Twitter, X, now could control TikTok, put that in one corner. And then the other corner, you've got Mark Zuckerberg in the last week doing cartwheels, turning himself inside out, pretending to be some sort of alpha male, pounding his chest, changing the rules of his company to curry favors with Donald Trump for all sorts of things he wants, like making sure the TikTok ban holds. Because what does Zuckerberg not want? TikTok here, because TikTok has been eating the lunch of an industry he once dominated.
Yeah, absolutely. And Trump has said, like, the reason that Trump gave for switching his position on the TikTok ban was that he wanted to hurt Facebook. We just saw this report from NBC that Zuckerberg, Musk, and Bezos are all going to be sitting together, at the inauguration. And it really feels like, we're just seeing this kind of closing in of these tech CEOs, and they're all jockeying for position. And, right now you got to say that Musk is in the lead as the biggest spender, the $250 million compared to Zuckerberg's $1 million.
Okay, but even if he's in the lead, let's just talk about that, right? You could say lots of companies, give to politicians on both sides of the aisle. They go to inaugurations, but let's really talk about who's going and where we are. Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, given a ton of money. They're
Tim
going.
Cook, don't forget him.
Yes, but but these three guys are going to the inauguration. They are sitting together, and they're even sitting with Trump's cabinet picks, right? So the VIP seats, okay? What do these three people have in common? They all are masters of industry in tech, right? Industries like social media platforms. They care a lot about artificial intelligence. You can throw crypto in there. These are all industries that face potential huge regulatory changes in the next 4 years, right? These are all industries that Donald Trump does not have specific ideology on. And if these men can control or influence regulation there, they will end up wealthier. In the next 4 years, there will be more zeros next to their names than any one of us can even count. Do people realize that?
I don't know. There does not seem to be any pushback, and you and I talked about this off camera, whatsoever to what's going on at this point in time. I mean, the single most conflicted individual at the moment is Elon Musk. I mean, you mentioned the companies that he has, Twitter, X, Tesla, but there's also Starlink and SpaceX, which are defense contractors. And so here's a man worth $400 billion who is going to the inauguration, who one report suggests may have an office in the old executive office building where the vice president sits on a daily basis and have unfettered access to the president of the United States as a private citizen, not as a government employee. So where the outrage would normally reside is totally absent here.
If a tree falls in the forest and no one hears it, does it count? If a conflict of interest prevails and everyone keeps saying, keep on trucking, will it matter?
Now, I think there will be pushback, and I think we're actually already seeing it. On social media over the last couple of days, you've seen a lot of Zoomers, kind of jokingly signing up for these Chinese competitors, sort of like almost trying to make the point that, like, we're not going to be pushed around by people.
But what if
Chinese competitors.
But what if he owns all the platforms? Where's the pushback going to happen?
And, I think there is competition, right? There's Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, and people can also just tune out. And I think we're starting to see, but in the electric car market, you're starting to see Tesla sales not looking as great. It's hard to know exactly why that's happening. It may have nothing to do with politics, but it may have a lot to do with politics.
Okay, I've run out of time, but the point I did want to make, I don't know if you saw, Jamie Dimon did an interview on CBS this weekend, right? Jamie Dimon has not been super critical of Donald Trump. He's been somewhat complimentary. He said he's open to doing business with him. But you don't see Jamie Dimon racing on down to Mar-a-Lago. And you don't see Jamie Dimon sitting next to him at the inauguration. There's a difference between being a CEO and having to do business with the White House. I'm sure once Trump is president, if Jamie Dimon gets called down to the White House, he will show up. He will obviously work with or meet with the Treasury Secretary. That is different from Mark Zuckerberg, who I'm going to say I'm more of an alpha male than he is now saying his company.
You're going to bring some more masculine energy to MSNBC?
I'm going to bring some more masculine. His company needs more masculine energy. My question is, Sheryl Sandberg, guess you ain't leaning in now that you're just sitting on the board.